The words leaving your mouth right now are part of a single conversation that has never once stopped in 200,000 years. Not through ice ages, not through empires rising and falling, not for one single generation. Every human who ever lived learned to speak from someone who learned from someone else. An unbroken relay of parents leaning over children, running all the way back to the very first people who ever made meaning out of sound. If that chain had snapped even once, language would have had to be invented from nothing all over again. But it never did. And when you talk to someone you love, you aren't just passing the time, you're carrying the oldest conversation on Earth one more link forward. Let's start with a strange problem. We don't actually know exactly when human language began, and the reason is haunting. Language leaves no fossils. Words vanish the instant they're spoken. A stone tool can survive 1,000,000 years in the dirt, but a sentence disappears into the air forever. So scientists have had to become detectives, piecing together the story of speech from indirect clues buried in our bodies and our genes. And those clues point to something astonishing. Deep in your DNA sits a gene called FOXP2, which plays a crucial role in the fine motor control that speech requires. When scientists studied it, they found that this same version of the gene was shared with the Neanderthals, a species that split from our lineage hundreds of thousands of years ago, which suggests the biological foundations for speech may be far, far older than our own species. Add to that the physical evidence. The human throat, uniquely shaped for a rich range of sounds, and the delicate wiring that lets us control our breath with the precision a spoken sentence demands. Everything about our bodies suggests we have been built to talk for an immensely long time. But here is the detail that should genuinely stop you. Whenever language truly began, one thing is undeniable. From that moment until this one, the chain has never broken. Think about what that actually means. You learn to speak from your parents. They learned from theirs. And they learned from theirs. An unbroken relay of people leaning down to speak to children, stretching back hundreds of thousands of years across every continent and every era. If that chain had snapped even once, if a single generation had grown up in silence, language would have had to be invented all over again from nothing. But it never did, not once, in 10,000 generations. Every word you know was handed to you by someone who was handed it by someone else, in a line that runs all the way back to the very first human beings who ever opened their mouths and made meaning out of sound. You are standing at the living tip of that line right now. And this is not just a beautiful idea. It is arguably the single most important thing our species ever did, because language is what let humans do something no other animal can. A chimpanzee, no matter how clever, essentially has to rediscover the world from scratch in every generation. But a human child inherits 200,000 years of accumulated discovery, downloaded directly into their mind through words. The word for fire, the knowledge of which plants heal and which kill, the story of what happened to the last person who wandered too far, or all of it, passed forward through speech. Scientists call this cumulative culture, and it works like a ratchet, each generation locking in what the last one learned and building on top of it. It is the reason we went from sharpened stones to spacecraft. Language is how the dead keep teaching the living. And some of those words are shockingly old. Researchers who study how languages change over time, including a scientist named Mark Pagel, have identified what they call ultra-conserved words, words so fundamental they may have survived in recognizable form for 15,000 years or more. Words like I and we and mother and fire. Which means that when you say the word mother, you may be making almost the same sound that a person made, huddled by a fire at the end of the last ice age, talking about the very same thing. The sounds themselves are heirlooms, worn smooth by thousands of years of human mouths and passed still warm to you. So here's the part almost nobody stops to think about. We treat talking as the most ordinary, disposable thing in the world. Idle chatter, small talk, words we forget the moment we've said them. But every single conversation you have is a thread in a fabric 200,000 years in the weaving, and the most important act in that entire history isn't found in any speech or any book. It's the quiet, endlessly repeated moment of a parent leaning over a child and teaching them their first words. That exact moment, performed billions of times in caves and kitchens and bedrooms across all of human existence, is the relay that carried us here. It is the most human thing there is. And it only works because it is shared. Language is the one thing that cannot exist alone. It lives only in the space between people, which changes what an ordinary conversation actually is. When you talk to someone you love, you are not just passing the time. You are performing the same sacred act that made us who we are, taking a signal that has traveled for 200,000 years and carrying it forward one more link, and one day you will hand it on. The words you teach a child, the stories you tell, the way you say someone's name, these will outlive you, carried into a future you will never see, in a conversation that may stretch another 200,000 years beyond your final breath. You are a single link, but the chain is very nearly immortal. So the next time you find yourself in an ordinary conversation with your child, your parent, an old friend, try to feel the weight of what you're actually holding. You are speaking with a voice first raised by people whose faces are lost to time, and you are handing that same voice to the people who come after you. This conversation is older than every monument, older than every nation, older than writing itself. It has survived everything history could throw at it, and it is still going right now through you. So don't waste the words. Say the ones that matter. Because you are, at this very moment, keeping alive the longest and most human conversation there has ever been. And one day, it will be someone else's turn to carry it on. Thanks for watching the Unspoken channel. If you enjoyed this content, feel free to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Until next time.